Welcome to The Breakthrough with Chris Medellin, and today I am here with my man, Adrian Gastelum. Did I say that right?
You did. Good day. How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing good, brother. Good. I am doing good. So out the gates, man, we are here with one of the most prolific, best loan officers in the country, and I'm so, stoked that you finally found the time that we can get together and do this, man. So
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here today.
Absolutely. I appreciate the invite.
Heck yeah, man. So let me tell the audience who we're talking to. So Adrian is a senior loan officer. He's been in the industry for 28 years, and 12 of those years he has been working at a company locally in Arizona called Nova Home Loans. They're a big regional player, been around for a long time. If you live in this area, you know who Nova is. Been one of the biggest players, and being there 12 years is like a crazy amount of time in the mortgage industry. As you know, people make moves all the time. So when I see somebody that has longevity with the company, you know that they're legit. You know that they're a loyal person. It's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you. But you were and have been one of the top 250 Latinos in the country. Number 2 in the Maricopa County, which if anybody knows Maricopa, that's one of the biggest counties in the MLS in Arizona. And then number 6 in the country, man. So you have made a living helping Latinos get into homes. Now, I don't pigeonhole you with that because I know you help all types of clients. I know your business. But there's something to be said about somebody that can take a family that didn't realize that they could ever be in a home and help them and change their lives. And so thank you for that.
Yeah,
and we need more people in the community because a lot of times, Adrian, I'll talk to Latino loan officers who speak Spanish, who have the superpower to connect on a different level, and they tell me, I don't want to deal with Spanish speakers.
Right.
I want to get into a different pond. They're harder than every other client. I want to talk about that with you today and
Sure.
what your thoughts on it. But you have a remarkable story. So let me tell the audience, for those of you that might just be tuning in because you know Adrian and you're interested in his story, the podcast itself is about breakthrough moments in life. It's why we call it The Breakthrough. Breakthrough moments in life are those times where you're pissed off, you're angry, you're underappreciated, you're undervalued. And right at that moment, you decide to make a switch in your brain that then takes you to the next level of your career. And dude, your story, man, we talked the other day, you were digging for change in your couches.
Yeah.
To go buy tacos at Taco Bell. We're going to talk about why Taco Bell in a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you, it's funny because as a Latino growing up, Taco Bell was good.
Yeah.
Like it was like they got the Sunday, I think they did 49 cent
Still
tacos.
good. Still good.
Still good,
Still
right?
good. Yeah.
So then you hit, superstardom with production. You were, hanging out, eating the best foods, living the best life. You had a vault in one of the biggest casinos, and then boom, we had a crash.
Yeah. Super humbling.
And then you hit a valley, and then we go for a run again.
Absolutely.
And this is what it's like. For those of you that are like, what is it like to be? I get a lot of people that see my stuff online back home from San Antonio, and they're like, hey, man, what do you do? How do I do what you do?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, man, it looks fun. But the valleys are the valleys. And, if you're in this industry, there's things that you got to do to break through. And so, Adrian, I can't wait to jump in this with you, man. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me again. Absolutely, man. This is, I don't really do podcasts because I don't really get out of my office very often, right? Yeah. So today was a special day, and I appreciate the invite.
No, man, this is good. So I saw you speak at an REP event that we were holding. You were one of the sponsors, and you got up on stage, and I was like, this dude is cool, man. I mean, like old school Latino, knows what's up. I looked at your background, and I was like, I want to meet him. And so to go from there to here is a really cool, manifestation of trying to connect with other powerful Latinos in the industry. So, talk to me a little bit about breakthrough moments and what that means for you, because, everyone right now in the industry that we're in, we're probably in one of the toughest markets of our careers. The difference is for you is you live the valley in one of the darkest moments in history with the Great Recession. And now we're kind of in something similar.
Mm-hmm.
in the industry when it comes to like the amount of loans that are being had, but it's different because rates are skyrocketed,
Right.
and there's no inventory.
Right.
Before there was inventory with low rates.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so different problem, but how are you surviving these days, man? What is, how, and just kind of talk to me about where you're at today.
It's challenging, right? It's challenging. You have the same 20 players going after before or during the pandemic, going after, 10 apples, right? And now you have the same players, the same 20 players going after 2 apples, right? So it's challenging. It definitely challenges your confidence. You take it and you internalize the issues that are going on in the marketplace as some of your own. Completely different from the Great Recession. More prepared, obviously older, wiser. Really didn't think I can fall and fail in 2007, 2008, 2009 time
Indestructible, man, because you had youth, you had indestructibility, you had immortality, in our heads.
Right.
We were on top. We were the smartest people in the industry at that time.
Always smartest people in the room, right? Smartest people in the room, and the market really shows you that sometimes you're not the smartest person in the room, and when you lose everything, right? I had over 30 investment properties at the time.
30 investment properties.
30 investment properties. I was probably completing some of those mortgage payments with the deficiencies of what the rents were, right? I was very over leveraged. And again, when that market took us away, my renters no longer were able to pay rent. And now I'm probably shelling out close to about $62,000 a month just to complete mortgage payments on renters that couldn't make the payment, just so I can maintain my investments and my credit and everything. And everything just came to a screeching halt. If you were in the industry then,
Absolutely.
Chris, you'd understood exactly. One day you may have had 20 in your pipeline, and that Black Friday came and took away all of the loans because all those lenders closed up shop, right? So it was a very challenging time. I was waking up puking from stress, and it came to a point where I had just run all of my savings to the ground. I sold everything that I could sell.
Let me ask this question. When you say you sold are you talking about assets from a real estate perspective, or are you talking about legit assets in your home?
Legit assets in your home, legit assets from real estate perspective. I owned some nice vehicles at the time and some limousines as well. Those things got sold. It was everything. The only thing I really kept was the clothes on my back and what I could fit right before my foreclosure notice. Right.
You got a foreclosure notice.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I lived it. I felt it. I breathed it. And I learned from it. Right. And it was a tough time, man. Like you mentioned, and then my girlfriend, I had made a decision that it was time to put a ring on that finger because she was sticking with me through thick and thin. It's very easy when an individual sticks with you when the money is falling from the sky. But the true definition of someone that has your back, from friends to family, are the people that stick to you when you feel the lowest of the lowest of the lowest out there, right? And that's
the clip right there. That's the clip right there. If somebody can stick with you, Chris Rock has a joke when he's like, women will never downgrade. He says, if you're buying them Louis, you can never go back to Coach. They'll never downgrade. Yeah. And you and I talked about this before, but I asked my wife to marry me when I was unemployed from the recession. I just got fired, and I was sitting there and asked her to marry me, and she, without hesitation, said yes. And then I went through a run of just her working and me not, until I can get my feet on the ground. And I've always looked at that and said, that's how that you have a good person on your side. And so, man, like take me back real quick, Adrian, like the moment that you get the foreclosure notice and you're sitting there, because by this point I'm imagining so fill the narrative for me, because I'm imagining that you have gotten rid of all your assets. You're kind of you think you're doing the right thing, and then boom, the foreclosure. And you kind of know. People know when they're not making the payment, but when it comes, that's the reality that sets in. What was that like for you? What was it like at that moment? And What did you do from that point? Like, where was your breakthrough moment in all that to say, okay, I can't change the market. I can't change the fact that I'm losing everything, but I still got to wake up every day. I still have to, because there's somebody right now going through that period.
No, I get it.
What was it? What was that like for you?
It was challenging, right? It's challenging. And going back to that time, you really think, where your headspace was at. And really, you're just trying to survive day to day. And we were still closing loans. I was still closing loans, but those loans didn't equate to the bills that I owed, right? So definitely overextended myself. I would imagine there's realtors and loan officers out there in the marketplace that bought the big house, bought the nice car, right? Lived check to check, deal to deal. And now that deal's not there like it was before. And maybe focused too much on the transaction rather than on the business, right? And for me, that was very humbling. For me, it was, let's face it, it's where everybody was at. My advice to a lot of my clients, friends, and family at that time was walk away, right? Walk away. And a lot of people held on, right? They wanted to do these short sales and they wanted to hold on to this and hold on to that. And now fast forward, you talk to those same individuals and they did let it go, but they probably fought for another year longer than I fought. And maybe I had the insight with regards to what was going on with loans and the difficulties of those loans. So I probably got out a year before the average person got out.
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
You were making business decisions knowing, or did you know? Like, did you know that the black mark on your credit report would eventually disappear at some point?
Absolutely.
Like, did you had the foresight
Absolutely
to say, I have enough life in me to get through this 7 years? Because for me, 7 years seemed like forever. Or, at the time, but you had to make a business decision to say, let's do this.
Well, I was actually thinking FHA, so I didn't have 7 years on my brain, right? In my space, it was like, hey, 3 years
there you go.
from foreclosure, I'm going to be able to jump back into
Yes.
this marketplace, let the
There you
market
go.
rebound itself, and just count my losses,
Yes.
right? And the hardest thing sometimes when the sky is falling is for people to count their losses and really downgrade their life. I probably went from a 7,000 square foot home on half an acre here in Gilbert Ranch, and beautiful home, and had everything that I needed at that age of 28. And I thought I was invincible. And when all this happened, I was probably around 30 to 31. At that point, I don't want to say I gave up, but I did let go of things that were causing me stress and causing me anxieties, because it wasn't allowing me to really get into my business. I always had that in the back of my mind. And when you have things that are so heavy in the brain and heavy on the heart, it's hard to just do your normal day activities.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt.
If you're worried about the stack of bills, if you're worried about the stack of bills that you got to pay,
right?
How do you come in and help somebody, with the biggest financial decision of their life in a clear mind without, I always tell loan officers this, if or anybody in sales really, whatever you think you're saying, if you're not in the right headspace, the person that you're talking to hears what you're really saying.
Absolutely. And
what you're really feeling. And so if you can't, with anxiety on your heart and with everything, man, you can't. So you were letting things go. You said, I'm letting it go.
I'm letting it go. I saved enough money to plan for a wedding. And my last chunk of change went to, put the deposit on this wedding. I actually paid it in full because I didn't know what was going to happen the next 6 months, a year.
When did you get married?
So
What's
I got
your
married March 14th of 2009.
So crazy. Mine was November 13th of 2008.
Wow.
So same time frame, right? Right in the middle of a recession.
Absolutely.
Did it on a Sunday because it was cheaper to do it on a Sunday than it was a Friday or a Saturday. And yeah, man, that was it. Same story. My last 30 grand was like, boom, we're going to take care of this marriage and go from there.
Very similar story, yeah. And for me, I knew the writing was on the wall, right? I comped out my house that, I purchased for $1.2 million. And at that time, it was worth about $500,000.
It went from 1.2 to 500.
Probably in a matter of months.
Okay,
so when you talk about a crash, that's a crash.
That's a crash. So in a matter of a month, so the kids listening, in the Great Recession, 2008, 2009 timeframe, whatever was worth $1 million dropped 50% in value. That's a housing crash.
That was because it was a nice neighborhood.
And that's because it was. But here's what's crazy: like You know, people who are putting houses on the market right now in the $1 million range are still getting offers.
For sure.
They're still moving. So we're not in the same situation we were then. This isn't a crash, right? But what is that house worth now? Have you ever looked at that?
I hate doing that, but I just because of who I am, I do it. That house right now is probably worth about $2 million.
Dude, see, I mean, so now an education for anybody who's listening. The highs and the lows of the market, even in the most drastic peak and valley situation, in a matter of 10 to 15 years, I think it's been in that time frame. A house that was going for 1.2 dropped to 500 and is now in a tough market, $2 million.
Yeah.
So when you're asking yourself, should I invest in real estate today? Do you ever think we'll be in a great recession again?
Man, I wish I had my crystal ball working right now, right?
I know, but
I never thought we'd be here right now as quick as we were. But when the pandemic hit, I saw the writing on the wall. When the Fed is pumping in a lot of money that shouldn't be in people's hands, and people have money that they typically didn't have, we got to pay it back.
Got to pay
right?
it back.
And that's kind of what the Fed is doing now, right? They keep on increasing these interest rates. Now we're on what, number 11? And that happened quick. Right. Yes. Most other recessions go on for 3 to 5 years in some marketplaces. Right. And kind of the Great Recession is what we felt. It was about a 2 to 3, 4 year pickup. And even when we thought we were recovering, there was another little correction right around 2012, 2013. Right. So a lot of lessons. The one thing I can say is the lessons that I learned as a younger individual has literally set my path for today, right? I can say that there's not as many transactions as all of us loan officers and realtors are used to, right? And my stress level is low. And the reason my stress level is low is because I've done the right things, right? And I did the right things for myself, right? When the market started correcting and doing its thing, I would have investors that say, hey, let's do this flip and let's do this buy and hold. And at that point, I was now married. I had a child on the way, my first kid, and growing up, in a struggling household. I was a family of 9, right, and I was the youngest boy. I'd get picked on and beat up all the time, right, growing up. But those lessons that I learned then as well showed me that you just have to keep on fighting, man. You have to keep on fighting and get the nay out of your head, and come through with a different attitude. Right. And it's no longer the attitude that I can't fail. The attitude now is I am going to fail, because it's a business that we don't control those markets. We don't control inventory. We don't control interest rates. We're all selling a product that's very similar. Right. So how do you separate yourself from the masses? And the lessons that I learned is just keep going. My mom never gave up when her back was against the wall, when the lights were off in our house. Right. When we didn't have food in the fridge, right? She just kept on going. So I always said to myself, if my mom never gave up, right, for my whole family, my payback is just to show my mom that I'm as Teflon as she is, right? And the lesson that I learned from that in itself, and just looking within, and praying a lot, right? It was a really dark, hard time, but it definitely was a lesson that I should have learned. And I learned it the hard way. And when people were hitting me up to do investments with them, I was just trying to survive. And my goal was, I need to have $20,000 in the bank. Because at that point, I knew that my bills would be paid next month. I knew that my family had food. I knew that I can provide a life for my family. Maybe not the life that I could have provided a family in 2005, 2006, 2007, right? But I wasn't going to fail. And I was just going to keep on persevering and just trying to pull through, and hopefully this market was going to change. But I learned really, really quick that it wasn't the market that had to change. It was me that had to change, right? And like you said, it's that mindset, right? And that mindset is everything. If you come in and you feel like it's going to be a shitty day, guess what? It's a shitty day.
Yeah.
But if you come in and you're coming into work and you're coming in with some energy, And people can feel that, like your real estate agents and your clients feel that energy. And the energy that you want to put out is that you're here to solve problems, to be a solution, no longer a problem to a marketplace. And prior, my marketplace was 80-20s, right? First and second mortgages, people with FICO scores of 580 to 620s, 100% financing, right? No mortgage insurance. It was a great time, right? But I knew when I could no longer help that underserved community, that if they were having pain points, that the wealthy, affluent were going to have the same type of struggles. And I learned really, really quick to figure out and to find out what your brand is all about. What are you all about, right? And for me, people have told me, hey, why are you in this marketplace with Latino, Spanish-speaking onlys, right? And for me, it's because of life and practices and teachings that I've heard and I've lived through. Especially with the Latino community, people don't give the Latino community as much of a chance than they well deserve.
That's the truth. I mean, sorry to interrupt, but we do so many deals for Latinos that were turned down by someone else.
Absolutely,
because they just didn't take the time to figure it out. Especially non-permanent resident, people that are in the country that want that American dream and that are getting turned away left and right. And I know that you have options and we have options, but but it takes work.
It does.
And so where do you find the strength to plow through and say, man, look, I can go and spend time with the affluent market or the middle market, and it's going to be a lot easier than this client. But what pushes you to help that client?
It goes back down to, and I think I talked to you about my first deal.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
My first deal, I was still in college, and I was no longer playing football, and my parents couldn't pay for my schooling or my housing or any of that, and I had to figure that out. And I had a good friend, one of my best friends at the time's girlfriend, was a real estate agent, and she was pretty new as well. And they knew that I was trying to get into the marketplace. So she said, come with me and I have a deal. And she put me at this brokerage shop right down the road on Gilbert, like Gilbert and Southern, right? And I remember walking in scared as all hell.
That's a rough area, by the way.
Yeah, probably. It wasn't that rough then, right? But walked in and it was literally a brokerage shop, like the old school brokerage shops that you probably see on the movies, where it's just older men smoking cigarettes, never seeing their clients, cloud of smoke, stacks of rate sheets, right? And I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was just
white out everywhere.
White out everywhere, bright lights everywhere, right? Cut and pasting left and right, right?
X-Acto knives.
Exactly. And those were the things, right? They had made the rules so loose and so easy. But at the end of the day, it was really about educating the consumer and educating that market, right? So for me, I learned really, really quick. I had a family that was living on a dairy farm out here in Chandler, Gilbert. And the individual, I had asked them, because I met with the real estate agent and myself, we went to this house, and we're talking about a shack, right? And this individual had 8 children, right? And these 8 kids were from the age of, I don't know, I would say 1 to 12, right? So very stacked up right after another, right?
What's cross streets on this dairy farm?
The dairy farm, I want to say it was like Pecos.
Yeah.
I want to say it was like Pecos and Lindsay.
I know exactly where you're talking about.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Pass there every day.
And now it's probably fully developed. They probably sold out, made millions, right? Yep. But the whole staff was living in these pods. And I walked in and very dilapidated housing. I was more shocked that a corporation actually had their employees in housing like this, right?
At this day and age.
At this day and age.
Yeah, crazy.
And all these children, and it was a 1-bedroom, and you had, with husband and wife, you had 10 individuals living in this little tiny shack. And it was time for them to grow, right? And I remember they got under contract. They cried. They never thought they were going to be able to get in contract. I didn't know what I was doing, so I didn't know how they were approved, what they were approved for. I was just going along for the ride. I was the translator for all intents and purposes. And at that time, we went to the closing table. We were at the closing table, and I had built a relationship with this family and really cared for them, right? Got emotionally attached, which in a lot of the lending games, they said, don't get emotionally attached to your clientele. That's the worst thing you can do.
I think you should be emotionally attached.
And I was reversed, right? I was like, no, the attachment is what makes me, because I put myself in that family's position, that 4-year-old kid, right? I knew what that kid was thinking because I had lived that. And for me, walked into the closing table, and at that time, interest rates were about 9% interest rates. And that was your normal FHA financed rate, which is about a 9 to a 9.5. And for me, we went to the closing table. I got to the closing table, and there was a 12.5% interest rate on their note. And I was smart enough to know that a 9.5 versus a 12.5 is a differentiator, right? There's something different there. At that time, I walked out of the room. I excused myself from the closing table, and I called an individual that I knew at that time was a mentor. And I said, hey, is this normal? And his response is like, no, that's not normal. They're giving them a subprime loan. It sounded like they were approved for an FHA loan prior, but they're probably making more money, right? There was 3 or 4 points up front. Their closing cost was probably $7,000 more than they anticipated from everything that they saw. But there wasn't any regulation in the industry then, right? You could bait and switch all day long. And that's, in my opinion, what put loan officers and lenders in a bad light for a lot of individuals. It was very much so the car salesman and the mortgage guy were on the same boat.
Agree.
And for me, I couldn't accept that. I couldn't accept that I was being treated like a used car salesperson. But the industry did that to all of us. And there were some good players in the market, and there's some bad players in the market. A lot of the bad players are gone for obvious reasons, and a lot of the good players are still here because they did the right thing. And for me, I walked back into the closing table. The individual told me, if you can walk out of the closing table, get an extension, I'll close the loan for you. And today I'll lock it at an 8.5. Right. So I said, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm saying. He told me exactly what to walk in and say. I walked in and said it. The family looked at me. They already had a relationship with me. So at that point, family's like, we trust you. The real estate agent, her first deal as well, my first deal. And she pretty much said, Adrian, I trust you. Right. She also was at this point emotionally invested with the family.
Yeah.
So fast forward 10 days later, they got an FHA appraisal transferred. We packaged the deal, and 10 days later, they were back at the same closing table with an 8.5% interest rate, $8,000 less in closing costs. And the individuals went from the last closing table with shock in their eyes and doubt that they were ever going to meet the American dream to we pivoted and moved, and now the American dream was being achieved for them. And for me, they cried, I cried, the realtor cried. It was a very emotional moment because I knew at that time I found my calling, right? And my calling was to help people. And my calling was to help underserved people. And for me, when people said, why are you in this marketplace? I'm in this marketplace because I love my gente, right? I love my community. I love my race. I'm very proud to be Latino. I'm very proud to be Mexican American. And for me, I knew if there wasn't enough of me out there, these individuals were going to be taken advantage of again and have in the past, right? We all have heard the horror stories. So for me, that was a big change. For me, that was an eye-opener for me. And I knew that this was the market that I needed to be in, right? I didn't know that we had a great recession coming. I didn't even know how to study charts or graphs or candlesticks or anything that we do today that is part of our business. But I knew
people know how to do it now.
Yeah.
People know how to do it now.
And technology is completely different now than it was then,
Yes.
right? I mean, the first loan I closed, it was a carbon copy. So you had to literally take out that little carbon copy paper in between papers and rub a pencil or pen in order to make a copy of what the individual was about to sign, right? And for me, I knew that was, for me, my aha moment, right? My aha moment on how I could apply myself, right? I ran to my mom's house with 100 different words in Spanish that I didn't know what they were and how to translate them. But if I was going to sound professional, I needed to know walk the walk and talk the talk. And my father and my mother interpreted a lot of those words to me. And when I'm sitting with the client or sitting on the phone, I would drop some of those words in Spanish just to validate me that, hey, I know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Right. And it was that moment of growth that I probably would never turn back the clock, because that's what made me who I am today, and why I am a big educator, and why I'm a big person in service for the community.
Without a doubt. I mean, you're the number 2 in the market you're in in the Latino community. I mean, that's something to be extremely proud of. And, you know, people in this community should be calling you who need help, who want to get to that, who want to realize the American dream. You know, you said something earlier that really resonated with me, but you were talking about anxiety and about how you had to like kind of release a lot of the things in order to get past that. Not a lot of people talk about mental health when it comes to the business we're doing. How do you handle that today? Like we're in one of the most stressful businesses. You know, what we do for a living is you're trying to, especially in the market today, help a client at a time where affordability is at an all-time worst in the market. Somebody who could afford a house yesterday is now on the market looking for a house. If rate changes just the slightest, they're no longer qualified.
Yeah.
Changes the entire game. So we're in a very stressful environment, especially for someone like you and other good loan officers out there who are looking at the 4-year-old kid in the house and saying, I'm going to help this family get out of this dilapidated rental that they're in.
Right.
And, you know, it makes what we do extremely difficult. But how do you handle all the pressure that, do you meditate? Do you have some sort of outlet that helps you handle the mental, you know, anguish that you might go through in this business?
You know, I've been working out.
Okay.
Right. And I think that's helped me. I've always been very much involved in sports my whole life. Right. I've played many sports and I played college sports as well. And I always had that. But when I got into this business, I kind of let that go. And it was a decade, if not 2 decades, before I had even worked out.
Oh, wow.
Truly worked out. And I knew if I was going to go through the season, that I was going to have to all be there. And I think working out has really helped me kind of stay focused. I think opening up and talking, right, and expressing my emotions and letting them.
That's not a thing
known.
we do in the
we
Latino
don't,
culture.
especially in the Latino community. We sweep it under a rug and we hope that it goes away.
That's exactly that is that's in marriages, in relationships. You know, it happens time over time that we are not built in our culture to talk about our feelings.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's
How did you overcome that? How did you overcome that?
I still struggle with it.
Yeah.
Right. I don't, you know, the one thing my wife and my partner and people in my life is like, you know, you need to talk more. And it's hard for me. It's hard for me to open up because I've created this hard exterior, right? People that don't know me judge me. People that know me know me.
You weren't the most approachable.
Yeah.
I kept on. I was like, I'm going to keep texting this dude and talking to him because I got to know his story. And you were really, you replied a few times, but I was trying to figure out a way to get, I like literally, somebody took in a bunch of pictures of the event and I went and found all of the ones of you and texted them to you because I was like, I need an excuse to talk to this dude.
Right.
And, you know, mainly because you come across as somebody who, and I look at this as a good thing, just so you know. It's not going to sound like it, but I look at this as something that is growing up. You know, you don't want to be the most approachable person, right? I don't want to be opened up to everybody. And so when you come into the room, you have a presence to you that there's a little bit of mystery there. And I was like, I want to get to know this person. But growing up, I don't know if it's a machismo thing or what, but you said it. I have a hard exterior.
Right.
But that's because you grew up in the streets somehow or another. What was that like? Like, I mean, did you have older brothers? Okay.
Yeah, I had 4 older brothers. 4 older brothers, and they're all great individuals, right? But just older brothers being older brothers, right?
Yeah,
I tell my older brother stories today.
Yeah.
And they're like, I didn't do that, right? And
Dude, they threw me in a dryer one time, bro, and they like deny it.
that was normal.
Yeah.
That was normal
They
for me.
put me in a dryer, turned it on,
They
bro.
wanted to see if you actually would tumble like the
Yes.
clothes, right?
Yeah, no, that thing just hit me in the head, you know, over and over.
I was in the dryer just in a different neighborhood, bro. You know, so they did a lot of things that probably developed my hard exterior, right? And probably had me, I was their punching bag for a while, but I wouldn't stop. I was relentless. I was the kid that wouldn't just shut up, right?
Well, because you wanted to hang out with them.
Wanted to hang out, and even them beating me up was a sign
attention,
of affection, right?
It was yeah, well,
right.
you know I'm here, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So for me, I think, you know, just to stay in that right headspace, and I catch myself daily going to that bad place, right? Because this market does that, and I know that I'm way more valuable to my family and way more valuable to my friends and way more valuable to the people I lead in my office and in my business, that they deserve the best part of me, right? And me having anxiety and being worried isn't my highest and best time used, right? And I've learned how to hone in that energy and just to keep trucking, right?
That's good.
My mom's never stopped. I won't stop.
Yeah.
Right.
Good.
And that's a hard lesson, man. That's a hard lesson to grow and to learn, especially when you felt like you were untouchable and you're on top of the world.
Yeah.
Right. Money wasn't an issue and buying things wasn't a problem, and not saving and not preparing for that rainy day. I didn't know what that meant. And I remember a manager at one of the companies I worked with had said, save your money. Every morning he would say, save your money, Adrian, save your money.
Is this
really
before
didn't
the
know.
recession?
Before the recession. Yeah. And then when the recession hit, he's the person I called. And it's like, I'm in this space right now. And he's like, you understand why, right? And I said, I didn't save my money, right? Didn't save my money. I overextended myself. I over-leveraged myself. I went all in, thinking that it was either I was going to hit $1 billion or I was going to hit $0, right? And that's what happened. I hit $0. I felt like I was smarter. But today, different lessons that I've learned then have catapulted me emotionally, mentally, physically. Now I know it's all up to me, right? This market can do whatever it does, but it's not going to take me down.
So, Adrian, what do you do today? I got so many questions for you, but what do you do today that you think sets you apart from the other loan officers? In you know, part of success is being in the industry for a long time and people knowing who you are and knowing you're good at what you do. It's reputation, right? It's your brand.
Right.
But there are things that you have to do every day when you get up and execute on that drive business. What does your day look like that you do differently, that you think that other people are not doing, that helps you stay successful in the hardest market we're in?
I go back down from lesson that I learned from my current owner. When the phone rings, pick it up. And when the phone's not ringing, pick it up.
That's good. That's another clip.
It's that easy, right? So being in front of people. And at the same time, I know that my cycle in this marketplace might be the last cycle. I might be in my last 10 years of this industry.
I think we might all be.
And I've accepted it, and I'm okay with it, right? As long as I've done all the right things leading up to that time frame, right? I can walk away in the sunset and be very, very proud of what I've built and the reputation I carry. What I do on a daily is I just keep on driving myself. And some days are harder than others. But when I wake up in the morning and I see my 3 beautiful children, it motivates me to get up, right? To get up and do those little things, right? And for me, that in itself is a lot more valuable in my life than I've given credit. My family just came back from Oregon, right? They were in Oregon for 10 days. And I don't think I ate at night because I was stressed out. I didn't have the release of seeing my children and asking them how their day was. And right. And just taking in their energy, right? That definitely helps me. And I've learned, I saw in my last 10 days, I got into this dark place and I didn't identify what it was. And the kids came home and
You were back to normal.
I was back to normal, man.
Crazy.
So it's one of those things where, surround yourself with great people.
Absolutely.
Right? And surround yourself with people that respect you and that love you. And if you don't have those people, find them, because there's a lot of great people out in the world today, right? From realtors as well. Some of the things that lenders say is like, these realtors want this and they overextend me here and they make me do this and they make me do that. And in reality, no one makes you do anything. It's what you choose to do is what you might be upset with yourself about. Yeah. That's not the realtor's fault.
Yeah, if your only value proposition to a realtor is writing a check, then that's the position you put yourself into, right?
Or closing a loan.
Right. So yeah.
Right. So in a lot of my cases, what I've done is I've changed it from transactional to relational.
That's it. You have to be.
You have to be. We're in a relationship business.
Yeah.
And some of these relationships last for a year. Some of these relationships last for 10 years, right? There's still agents that I work with today that I've worked with in my year one. The majority of the agents that I worked in those first cycles are no longer in the business, right? When the market crashed, everyone had to go back to W-2 wages. And a lot of the people that were my aces were no longer aces, right? And when I'm looking around and I look at rosters, I don't see those names anymore. So
isn't it crazy? Like even now, looking at the rosters or looking at, we have data, right? And you look at realtors, I'll look at it every now and again and look at how much the volume has dropped.
Yeah.
It is crazy.
It's crazy.
And, I think that that's the reality of the industry we're in. Yet, what did you do differently in 2020? Well, even leading up to 2020, 2019, 2018 were still really good years for us. You know?
Absolutely.
So leading up into going into 2020, 2019, where, for those of you that weren't in the industry, those are the I've never seen anything like what we were witnessing, in terms of it was a painful time because of what was happening in the world. And yet business was falling out of the sky in a way that we didn't have enough human resources in the industry to keep up with the capacity that we had, right?
Absolutely.
There wasn't enough bodies in the industry. And so all we're doing is just trying to poach bodies from different companies to come over to us, pay them more, and then boom, it stops. Right. When you were at the top of your game, at the toppest peak in 2020, 2021, what did you do differently from 2007, 6 that you didn't lose everything this second time around?
Well, I concentrated on my real estate agents. Back in 2007, 2008, I was a refi guy.
Oh, there you go.
And I had a lot of purchase business as well. But again, a lot of the purchase business that I had went away because those realtors were no longer in the industry. Mm-hmm. So I think focusing on the real estate agent's always going to have more clients that want to buy homes. Maybe not the amount of people that we were used to. And when that pandemic hit in 2020, it scared the hell out of me. Mm-hmm. It scared the hell out of me because we didn't know what this looked like.
Did not know.
Right? And interest rates at that time were probably between, again, I have amnesia, but I'm thinking it's probably in the 5s.
It was in the 4s, 5s for a long time.
DPAs were in the 6s already, right? And then Fed fund rate went down to 0. Interest rates went down to 2. And I made sure I continued to focus on the purchase business. Yeah. The refi business was water under the bridge. And a lot of people did it the other way. They said, man, that's the lower hanging fruit. I don't have to deal with real estate agents anymore. Let's bang the phones. Let's send marketing out. Let's get these 5%, 6% interest rates down into the 2s to the 3s. And a lot of people focused on that. And I believe a lot of loan officers that are struggling today let their eye off the prize.
Oh, no one was talking to realtors. I mean, I remember talking to realtors in 2021, asking like, are realtors calling? I mean, LL's calling you. No one's called me in a year.
Yeah.
No one's calling me in a year. I remember getting calls from brokers saying, hey, we just got rid of our lender because they don't want to pay anymore.
Right.
Do you want to come in, And it's just like, this is crazy. And then skip to 2022, they're like, man, I'm getting hit up by
Everybody.
thirsty, LO.
Yeah.
LOs are leaving the industry by the droves right now. I mean, so many people just, are out, right?
Yeah.
And so you just focused on the task at hand.
That's it.
This is gonna change, and I'm not gonna change my business. I'm gonna stay a purchase guy.
Yep, I stayed a purchase guy. I still did refis. I mean, trust me, we were doing 15, 20, 30 refinances a month. So I still did refinances, but a lot of my refinances were just more for my past clientele. I wanted to add value to my past clientele. I wanted to show them the reason why they did business with me when the rate was a 6 is because now when the rate's a 2.5% or 3%, they can still count on me.
Yeah.
Right. And I showed my real estate agents when other people are hiding at home during the pandemic, I was out showing and giving classes.
Yeah.
Right. I was breaking bread. I was doing those things in order to stay relevant, right? In order to stay fresh.
Absolutely.
And
I never left the office.
And being,
I was the only one in the office. I never left the office. I was like, I'm just gonna, because if everybody still has to go home, right? Then nothing's changing for me. I have to do the same. But it was a glorious time back then because we were able to do things that no one else was doing, like doing a Zoom, or an Instagram Live, or doing, a LinkedIn Live. Nobody was doing that at the time. So that was really a fun, nobody's doing podcasting, it was really a fun time to get into this game. I miss those things about it, and I missed the market, but it was still challenging, man. I mean, remember the stress you had, having to relock loans, extend loans, just not enough resources.
The resources was the biggest stress, right? Because we were pulling people off the street as long as they knew how to bang on a keyboard, and they had a job, right? And we're going to call you a processor, right? So in a lot of times, in a lot of cases, the industry overhired. And that's why when we were overhired, we were too fat.
Dude,
right?
we went from 5,000 employee company to 12,000 overnight. I remember in a 48-hour period, everybody worked from home, like boom, overnight. And then 2021 comes, and we end up cutting like 50% of getting back down to 5,000.
Yeah.
And that was painful because guess what? Everybody hired their brother, their sister, their husband, their wife, their, kids.
That was the pool. That was the pool we were fishing from.
Whoever could, and then now you got to tell them, hey, you gotta let go of, this. You don't have enough business to do it.
It was hard.
And those are hard times, man.
Yeah, it was hard. And for us, we probably had 8 processors at the time for my office.
Oh man.
And at that time, I kept people staffed.
Yeah.
I kept people staffed probably all the way through December of 22, when my company was saying, you got to let these people go. And for me, I said, these are individuals that gave us so much throughout the pandemic. These are individuals that worked massive hours of overtime. These are individuals that had supported me and all my loan officers in the office. How am I going to turn my back on people, right? And I would rather not make any money. I can say to you that from the month of July of 22 to probably about January of 23, I didn't make $1. All my commissions went to support,
pay your staff,
to pay my staff.
Good for you.
And for me, that was another lesson that I had to learn, because life is always teaching you different lessons, especially in this game. And it's really about people. You care for people that served you. Absolutely. And that cared for you. Now there comes a point where now the volume is now tumbling and tumbling and tumbling. You got to make business decisions. And at some point, I have to bring home some money. I got to bring home some bacon.
Yeah.
Right. So, but those were challenging times. And when people were saying get rid of people, this is going to turn around. I'm holding on.
Yep.
At some point, you had to let go of some things.
Yep.
And the great thing about it is that I didn't have things that costed me money anymore, because all those things were paid.
There you go.
Right. And my savings account was good.
Good for you.
And I was able to make sure that the people around me were still making money. Maybe they weren't making their income goals, because nobody was making their income goals. But at the very least, they can keep the lights on. They can feed their families, and they can at least have something to hold on to. And for me, the sacrifices that we took was for them. Even though they don't probably know it, and it's not like I walk into the office and tell people, hey, you're only hired because my commissions are paying for you.
Oh, no.
it was just thank you for your time, thank you for your service, and it's still a challenging time. I don't see where we're at today. We may have another set of layoffs in the industry, right? The Fed has done what they've done for the reason, and I really believe the only way we're truly going to hit that recession button, in my opinion, everyone has different opinions, is when we see unemployment go up, right? Just like we had an unemployment, what was it? ADP came out with numbers of 325,000 jobs this week. What happened to our rates? They lost, right? Then we see the real numbers that came out, right? And 90% of those numbers were part-time employments, right? And when you're looking at it from an economist perspective or from the Federal Reserve, they only see wins and losses on the board. They don't really see that these individuals were 40-hour workers. Now they're part-time workers. Now they're underemployed. So what have we been seeing the last 2 days? We've been seeing the markets rebound due to some of that data. Some of that data. So, I don't believe that we will see lower interest rates, but until the expectation of unemployment goes up. And I know some players just here in the Valley. One particular lender doing very, very well has purchased some companies here in the marketplace. And I'm hearing that they're getting rid of 900 people in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, there's a company that just I won't say the name. It won't even have any relevance by the time 3 weeks from now that this we get to set it in and out. But there's another company that they're not making payroll. They're doing paper checks. Their warehouse lines got cut off yesterday.
Ouch.
They're in such bad shape that they're not paying their leases anymore. And they're still trying to hold on, trying to find a buyer or trying to get an infusion of cash. And I think that everybody was kind of holding on to the rates were going to change in June. Mm-hmm. Now we're in August and it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
In fact, it actually got worse. And so I think it'll get worse between now and end of year. But what I do know, and remember me saying this, is that there's no way we're going into an election year with this situation. You know what I mean?
If the Dems want to win, they're going to have to pull something out of their back pocket.
So because affordability is such an issue.
Yeah.
And there's no way we will go into an election year like this. I think worst case by March, but I think it's going to happen sooner, and we'll see what happens. But I think, we've been in this industry long enough. Something will happen in the world that drives rates down.
Sure.
But let me ask you, Adrian, before we close out, I do just something I've been wanting to ask, different guests, and I'm so interested in your story. Like, tell me a little bit about you and your routine. Like, what time do you wake up? What time do you get into the office? And what does that day look like? When do you wrap up? When do you spend time with your kids? And the reason I ask those questions is because I believe that that success comes from habits. And if the habits are I roll in at 10 and I leave at 3, then your numbers are going to reflect that.
Right.
So when I'm talking to one of the top producers in the country who's dealing with the hardest clientele to assist, what does your day look like to you, and how do you plan that?
So for me, I don't really plan it anymore. It's just ingrained in me at this point.
Okay, good.
Right?
Yes.
Average day, I would probably wake up about 5:45 in the morning.
Okay.
I'm checking emails, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe responding to emails that I didn't respond to later, right? Because everyone likes to email late at night. Mm-hmm. So I respond to those emails. I check social media. I kind of follow up on my people that I follow, right? Absolutely. My tribes.
Yep. So far, I haven't got any likes from you, but no? Go on.
Sorry about that. Then at that point, I just get ready for work. As I'm getting ready for work, I'm filtering phone calls, answering questions, doing whatever I need to do. I have about a 40-minute drive from my home to my branch.
So you go to the branch every day?
Every day. Okay. Every day. And
where's your where do you live? Where does your branch?
So I live in Arcadia.
Okay.
Right. So I'm 56th in Indian School.
All right. It's where the rich people live.
and
Everybody, these are rich people houses.
And I work on 83rd Avenue in Bell.
Oh,
it's on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
Right? The other side of the world, especially from here.
You're close to LA, bro.
Absolutely. That's what my kids say. Are we at Disneyland yet? Right. But for me, I take that 40-minute drive to the office and from the office to do my follow-up calls.
Got it. Yeah, so you're busy the whole time.
Busy the whole time. I don't even think I've turned the radio on in that car for years now. And it's just following up on clients and following up on realtors and following up on contracts and calling pre-quals. I try to get all of that done because I know when I get to the office, something's waiting for me, right? So then I get to the office and I have some problem child files.
Yep.
Either on my team or in my branch, and then I'm now getting ballot and trying to fix problems for loan officers and for clients and for everyone under the sun. And then right around 12, I start working on my own personal production, which a lot of people, especially top producers, is like, you take care of yourself before you take care of everyone else. And I'm kind of the opposite. I want to take care of everybody else, so then now I can take care of myself and my team.
Yep.
I have team members that are working, from 8 to 8 or 8 to 5 or whatever their schedules allow. And they're doing a lot of the follow-ups and a lot of the calls that I can't get to on one given day. And really, I'm just making phone calls and I'm trying to stay relevant and I'm trying to touch base with people, clients, picking up the phone when it's not ringing.
Do you eat in the office?
I typically get food in the office. If it wasn't for my team, I probably wouldn't eat during the day. Yeah. I'm one of those people that doesn't need to eat.
I take 5 minutes and I'm like as fast as I can because I'm not taking lunch breaks.
Right, and I'm probably in the car, depending on the day, anywhere from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. on the way home.
Yeah.
Right, and that's a fail on my part because half of the time I get home, my kids are already tucked in bed.
Yeah.
Right, and my kids are small. There's we have a 7, a 10, and a 13-year-old. Right, and I've lost a lot of their life because I've been dedicated a lot of my time and my energy to my clientele and my business. And
but are you still? We talked about this, but are you still closer to your kids than your parents were with you?
Naturally, yeah, because my parents were never home. They were always working just to try to keep the lights on.
It's weird how we follow in that footsteps, but I will say I think men today, even in the Latino culture, are different with their kids than what we were. I wasn't talking to my kids the way, my dad wasn't talking to me. No harm to him. He just wasn't brought up that way. But I didn't have my kids and I have really close, deep relationships where I just don't think we had that with our parents growing up. But we are hard on ourselves about it. Like we all wish that we had more time.
Absolutely. So for me, weekends.
Yeah.
Right. I'm the weekend warrior dad.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to spend time with them. And in some cases, at the 13-year-old, I might have missed the boat on my 13-year-old, right? Because at 13, you don't want to hang out with your dad and your mom, right? You're on TV or you're gaming or, you're on your phone or whatever these 13-year-old kids do these days. But yeah, the relationship's different from what your parents had because your parents talk to you more as your kid.
Yep.
And I feel like I'm talking to my kids more like if they're my friends.
There you go.
People that I can relate to a little bit more, right?
I'll tell you what, our 13-year-olds aren't doing the stuff we were doing.
Oh man, I was running the streets at 13. I'm glad. I am glad the kids aren't doing what we were doing when we were 13.
Because it was like we were like doing adult stuff at that time.
Yeah.
Stuff that was straight up adult stuff.
Yeah.
Dude, I will say that, what I'm hearing from you is, Renee Rodriguez says this, the work-life balance is bullshit. And it triggers me when he says it, but he's like, ask anyone who's succeeding right now if they have work-life balance. Nobody's going to tell you yes.
And that's funny because I was in that presentation, and when he said that, it hit me like a ton of bricks, man.
Yes.
And I've been trying to achieve that work-life balance because I owe it to my family. Mm-hmm. But then when I see the flip side of that coin, it's a lot worse than what it could be today.
Yeah, our kids our kids have an opportunity different from what we did. And the question is do they grow up with the same hunger? Do they grow up with the same, they're probably going to be smarter, faster, quicker.
Sure.
But they're never going to be as hungry as we were growing up, And so I don't know, man. I don't know what the right answer is, but I will tell you this. You are doing everything that I think every loan officer should be doing right now. And if you want work-life balance, you do it in the next rally.
Yeah.
But right now you got to grind.
Yeah.
And do it the right way, do it with the right mental health. You know, you said you work out. And honestly, if I skip a day of working out, I feel it.
Yeah.
I feel like my brain isn't right. I feel like I didn't have that release. And I think people need to focus on themselves. They need to, you know, invest time into their well-being if they want to do this. You know, Tom Ferry said a really great thing. He said, you know, when we get into times like this, I tell my wife for the next 6 months, it's going to be rough, but I'm going to prospect more than I ever prospect. I'm going to work out harder than I've ever worked out. And you're not going to see me as much as you've seen me, but this is how we're going to survive. The trick is that you got to take the good times and get the balance then. You know, take the vacations, take the time with your family.
Right.
But man, I'm proud that you came to the studio today, because I know it's literally, you know, buys you another hour of your day back to your office.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you.
And I hope that somebody out there hears your story and is inspired by it. For those of you that want to see this live, we are on my YouTube page, the Chris Medellin, and Adrian Gastelum, right? Am I saying that right?
Yes,
I was
Gastelum.
Yeah, Gastelum. I want to say Adrian Gastelum.
It's all the same. It's all the same to me.
Yeah, let me get my notes here because I want people to follow you. Let's see. We got, if you're looking for him on IG, it's the website is ateamloans.com. Instagram is NovaHomeLoans _ the A team. A is for Adrian, I'm assuming.
Adrian and Ann.
Adrian and Ann. There you go. And on Facebook, it's the team Nova. Nova is a company he works for. He has been there for 12 years. He is serving the community in the best way. Adrian, thank you, man, for sharing your story with us. Thank you for coming in and inspiring people on how to be better at what they're doing. And it's a journey. And I love that you're coming in with saying, you know, there's still a lot to work on.
Absolutely.
I hope we get you back on. I'd love to hear the next iteration of your story, man. But thank you so much for sharing it today.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you. And, you know, if I can leave you with something, going back to that family, right? Those 8 kids, I've helped them purchase homes.
Wow.
So there's something that I did right. I got 2 attorneys, 1 architect, 2 doctors out of that family. And I feel the pride that because of what I helped that family through my first transaction, and now they're all very successful individuals and citizens, that I feel like I had my hand in that. So
you did. I mean, putting a family into a home skyrockets the probable success of the kids that are in that family than to be in a dilapidated hut on a dairy farm, or in an apartment to apartment be yanked out of schools. Giving them wealth in equity. I bet if you go back to that family, there were home equities pulled out to put those kids through schools.
Actually, I've asked that question.
Yeah.
Full ride scholarships for all these kids.
Man, that is amazing.
And in a lot of cases, these kids have said to me in their transactions, right, they're very thankful.
Yeah.
And they know that there's tons of lenders out there. But I provided them a vision for them to see beyond what they were able to see as little kids. And for me, that should be a message to everyone. It's like, don't give up, man. Believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And no one cares about you more than you. So take care of you. That balance doesn't have to be your life-work balance, but I think it has to be that mental balance.
Yes.
And as long as you have air in your lungs and you can breathe in and breathe out, today's a good day.
Yes.
So keep on pushing through, keep on breaking through, don't give up. And again, the fruit is a lot sweeter when you've paid your dues.
Hell yeah. I love that, man. Thank you. Thank you, man. I appreciate you doing this today.
Take care.
This is powerful.
My pleasure.
Everybody have a great day. Check this out. Like, subscribe.